Hi, I'm Paul Beckwith. I'm with the University of Ottawa Department of Geography, Laboratory for Paleoclimatology. Humanity is essentially at a crossroads. Today, now, not in 10 years, not in 20 years, not at the end of this century, but we're at a crossroads at this exact time in history on our planet. Basically, we've been rapidly combusting fossil fuels, and we've increased the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from 280 parts per million at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution to over 400 parts per million, approaching 405 parts per million. It's not just CO2, although CO2 is considered the control knob of the climate because of its longevity in the atmosphere. About half of the CO2 that goes into the atmosphere ends up fairly quickly in the oceans, which contributes to ocean acidification. But the amount going into the oceans depends a lot on what's happening in the southern oceans. About 80% of the surface water is recycled down to deep ocean. And if that is happening at a fast rate, then that extracts more CO2 from the atmosphere. But if that slows down, if the water becomes more stratified, then the sink ability of the oceans decreases, and the concentration range, the concentration amount goes up in the atmosphere. Ever since I was a young child, I don't know, about 5 or so, my family would watch, every Christmas Eve we would watch this show called A Christmas Carol. The main character, Ebenezer Scrooge, was a miser, a wicked, evil, uncaring person. Didn't care about humanity at all. He lived to make money. The bottom line was all he cared about. And this is what I see as happening today with corporations and the goals of many people in society. Now, Ebenezer was visited Christmas Eve by 3 ghosts. So the first ghost was the ghost of Christmas past. So I see the analogy of this to the records that we have of paleoclimate, the records of how the climate changed in the past, either direct instrumental records going back a couple hundred years, longer in Europe, to tree rings, to ice core proxies on atmosphere, previous atmosphere and previous temperatures, to marine sediments, to corals, coral rings, to stalactites and stalagmites in caves, etc. Any physical system where we can extract information on previous climate is like the ghost of Christmas past. And this is showing us that the climate system was very capable of extremely rapid changes in temperature over extremely short periods of time, what we call abrupt climate change. So the recent Hansen et al. Paper talks about the paleo records and what they said specifically about the last interglacial warm period called the Eemian, about 130,000 years ago, when temperatures were perhaps only 0.2 or 0.3 degrees Celsius warmer than today, maybe up to a degree warmer than today, and sea levels were in the range from 5 to 9 meters higher than today. The ghost of Christmas present is basically analogous to what we're measuring today. So we're seeing big changes in our climate today. Practically speaking, there's large changes in the there's amplification of the warming in the Arctic because of declining sea ice and snow cover. So the Arctic is getting darker, it's absorbing more solar radiation, it's heating up a lot more than the equator. This decreases the temperature gradient, causes the jet streams to slow down and become wavier, and causes an increase in the frequency, severity, and duration of extreme weather events. So we're seeing more heat waves now. We're seeing droughts, specifically the California droughts in South America, the California drought spreading to Canada. We're seeing this on a global basis. We're seeing extreme heavy rainfall events, torrential rainfall events, which is leading to flooding in many parts of the world. We're seeing larger and larger, more high-intensity storms because the atmosphere is holding more water vapor and the jet streams, so the atmospheric circulation is different, and it's leading to all of these things. Now, there's also massive changes happening in the ocean, which are not as well known as the atmospheric changes, because we live on the continents, and we experience the atmospheric changes in terms of weather patterns. But the oceans are also rapidly changing. We know they're getting a lot more acidic, but the ocean currents are changing. And we're seeing, like, look for example, at the Pacific Ocean, the huge temperatures in the Pacific Ocean. We have a massive El Nino event occurring, but in the high Pacific, the ocean water temperatures have been extremely high, 3-4 degrees warmer than normal, and blobs of that water have gone into the Arctic, contributing to declining, through the Bering Strait, contributing to declining sea ice. So we're seeing all of these things. So this is the ghost of Christmas present. We're also seeing increases in sea level rise, and we're seeing a doubling of melt rates from Greenland and Antarctica every 7 years or so, from what I can determine. So all of these things are happening, but the key. So what about the ghost of Christmas future? The ghost that Ebenezer Scrooge feared the most. You can either ignore it, and just go on with we can ignore it, I should say we, not you, and go on with our busy lives and just hope for the best, or we can study what we know about the past, what we know about is happening now, and try to make, try to figure out what's happening, what's going to happen in the future. And this is why humanity is at a crossroads, because the science is showing, as clearly illustrated in numerous scientific papers, that if we continue our present ways and our past ways of burning fossil fuels, the chemistry of the atmosphere will have changed sufficiently that we're going to go to a point where we can't backtrack, because what's happening is that the Antarctic ice sheets are destabilizing, because the ocean water is warming most significantly at depths where these ice sheets are grounded onto bedrock. So the melting ice in these locations then leads to ice shelf collapse, which will then lead to accelerated motion of ice from the main ice sheets on the ice caps into the water, and this will lead to irreversible ice collapse, melt, and sea level rise. In fact, leading to several meters, as high as several meters, very quickly. If you have a doubling period of 10 years of ice melt, we're talking about several meters sea level rise within 50 years. So this is the ghost of Christmas future. But it's a future that is not locked in stone. That future depends on what we do today, not what we do in 10 years, not what we do in 20 years, but what we do today, what we start doing today. So we need to slash fossil fuel emissions worldwide. We need to examine and implement every means possible to reduce CO2 levels from the atmosphere down to safer, more tolerable levels. And I think we need to cool the Arctic also to keep the methane in place. Now, Hansen doesn't even mention methane. He doesn't mention jet stream behavior, which are some of the things that I've been focusing on recently. But the sea level rise will make, it will basically, the cost of sea level rise of 3 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters, you know, happening, you know, this, like in the next number of decades, you know, certainly before the end of the century, those costs are incalculable. Look what happened to society and civilization and the economic system of our planet, of Earth, when a few buildings were taken down in September 11, 2001. Now consider every city on the coastline inundated and inoperable with mass migration inland, and consider, you know, the costs and the turmoil and the disruption to society. So this is exactly where we're heading. You know, if we continue to do what we've done, then we will end up there at this particular state. But this is not necessary, like I say. This is why I say that humanity is at a crossroads. So in the next number of videos, I'll be focusing on some of the science and some of the implications of what will happen, how we know that sea level is on a trajectory to have multi-meter rise, and you know, why a lot of mainstream climate scientists today are basically crapping their pants over this type of thing, because they have completely misjudged the dangers and the risks that we face, in my opinion. Thank you.